In this video, we are breaking down Freaks by Joshwa, and the whole point is to kind of study the arrangement so we can take the principles and techniques that Joshwa uses and put them in your own tracks, so your own tracks go off on the dance floor. In case you haven't heard the track, this is what it sounds like.
They say the freaks come out at night.
And then with the vocal.
I need a freak to hold me tight. I need a freak every day, every night. I need a freak. I really do.
So let's start breaking down Joshwa's Freaks. Some things that I want to mention right away that I think are really important for this track and why it's so cool and why it's doing so well is obviously strong hook and groove. I put this as point number 0 because, you know, that should be the obvious thing. It's got an awesome little vocal hook and it's got a nice groove, and way, way, way more should be said about this, but we're going to move on. And so here's some more kind of like things that maybe you wouldn't think about in terms of, analyzing this track, but it's got this kind of core motif, and it's really cool because it kind of just builds and expands upon this core motif across the track. And so we'll break that down. And then another really good thing about why this track works, and that's what the whole point of these breakdowns is doing, is looking at the simple structure. It just has a simple structure. It's following the HG2 formula, and this is my cheat sheet for the arrangement story told in the HG2 formula. So we're going to show how it's such a simple structure, how Joshua's doing it, and then finally what I want to show you is how you could do something like this track, but a lot of producers think about it in the opposite way. Like they approach it one way, but it's a little bit of a trap. It gets you a little bit stuck. So I want to kind of show you how you can kind of build a similar track, like a core motif like this, but you're going to have to work a little bit backwards. So we'll take a look at that. So yeah, that's what we'll do at the end, a little bit more of like a practical takeaway, but let's start kind of breaking down the track, looking at the structure, breaking down the kind of core motif and how he kind of builds on it throughout the kind of track. So starting over here, let's go ahead and press play, and here we go. Okay, so right away, let's just start kind of mapping it out. So let's just go right into the simple structure, the HG2 formula, breaking it down. So right now we're in the intro. So I'm just going to actually create like a map here, just an arrangement map. And this is going to just be first the intro here. So intro. And what do we want to do in the intro? We're going to try to keep this real quick. Although even in his intro, he's starting to introduce some of the motif. But in the intros are for DJs, not for producers. You want to keep it simple for the DJ, right? You don't want to give them a reason not to play the track just because it's the freaking intro, you know. But right away, usually it's just going to be beats because you don't want to conflict with the bass line of the previous track when a DJ is mixing in. He obviously has beats. Intro hook teas, we'll look at that. We'll also look at unique thing and identifier and motif. All of these are basically going to be here. So let's check this out. So keep on going. So lots of cool little kind of like, percussion and a little bit of glitchy stuff, but still solid, just strong beat. All right, and then getting over here, just 16 bars of that, and then we just get into a little bit of an edit. And this is where we finally start getting the start of the motif in the track, not just a percussion motif. I did write percussion motif right here, but kind of like an overall motif that involves the percussion and the bass. So this is where it comes in. But right away, we're getting something in here, which is going to be an A-B. So here in the A-B, we don't have a high pass into a full kick. Here we just have like beats into a perc motif. And then but this percussion motif serves as the identifier. It's the unique thing of the track. And of course, we have a motif. All right, so let's keep on going. And just in case you don't know, the motif I'm referring to is the percussion. Boom, da boom, boom. plays one percussion, then dun dun as a second percussion. Dum, ba-dum, boom. So I guess what we could do is just start mapping this out. So we're going to do basic, we'll do basic beat, and then we have a perk motif, and the beat's just going to be drums. Maybe I'll just call this drums. And then we'll go here, and I just want to map out the motif really quick. So let's go right here. So he's just going, you know, dotted eighth rhythm. So dum ba dum boom. So, and then I'm just going over here. That's it. And then it does change up. So it does change up at the end, just as like a little bit of like a turnaround to the motif. So if I just map that out really quick too, you'll see what I'm talking about. So then we just get an extra little hit right there. And then that is the little turnaround for the... Okay, and then we have like a little bit of a fill that happens right there, but I'm not zooming in on the micro stuff. It's just like that's so easy to kind of go down the rabbit hole on micro stuff. But one of the things I always say is like the magic is never in the small things. It can be, but you have to look at the big things first. Understand the big things first, and then you could look at the small things. The real magic, the big magic, is in the big things. Because imagine, you know, if someone's playing the track across the room, or the club system sucks, like, so you can't even hear the micro details, you know? And so you still have to think about the big things, and that's what we're mapping out, is big things first. So the magic is in the big things, not the small things, so at least in what we're going to be looking at. So okay, so this is still intro.
I need a break.
So right there, we get the intro hook tease. So the intro hook tease is where you tease the hook in the intro. And it usually happens exactly where Joshua placed it. So I'm going to do Vox for now, keep it simple, and then we will maybe expand on that later. But right here, boom.
I need a break.
Real simple, and then it just moves into the next part. So let's now obviously we're going to get the bass coming in here, and the bass is part of the core motif right here. All right, and that's going to be the next section, is we're going to just go into the bass drop. So bass drop, and the bass drop, let's look at what we need to do, because we're paying attention to a couple things, right? We're going to be moving between a couple things in this video. One is just kind of the high level structure, but then also kind of the core motif. And so we'll be moving back and forth on that. And then, of course, just some other observations in the track. But if we move back to the structure now we're in the bass drop. Okay, so we're already through the outro. We've already checked off all the boxes for the HC2 formula. And then we'll go into the bass drop. So what is the bass drop? The bass drop is where we introduce the bass line, and only the bass line. Okay, we want to teach people how to move, groove, and dance to the track before we start throwing hooks on top, like vocals or leads and stuff like that. That's what the hook drops are for, coming up. So for example, right here, this is where we're going to start throwing hooks on top of the groove. But before, you know, we're just teaching people to groove first, all right? Learn how to move. Also, DJs could be mixing in here too. So if you have a bunch of hooks on top, conflicts with the previous track. So just keep it simple right here, both for the listener and for the DJs. But what we could do is we can start to tease the hooks through the bass drop just a little bit, especially leading in towards this first break, which is coming up, all right? But that's what the bass drop is really for. One is just introducing the primary groove of the track, and two, starting to move towards the break and the first hook drop, all right? Starting to just kind of create that momentum. Okay, so what do we have? So we're getting the first kind of part of the bass, which is following the core motif. So right here. So you can hear how the bass is playing this first part of the motif. So Okay, and then a little bit of a turnaround on the bass that doesn't quite follow the percussion motif, which is even cooler because even though they're aligned a lot in terms of the motif, they're still, a little bit different, which creates more interest. So if we duplicate this twice, we can kind of map out that little variation in the bass line. So right here, and then he does have this note right here. Check it out. Let me just make sure too that I didn't miss something in the motif. Check this out. So, nah. Cool. But right away, you can start to see how you have this kind of core motif. And again, I'm not specifying like a percussion motif or a bass motif. It's higher level than that. It's a core motif, and the motif is shared by different instruments throughout the track, specifically the percussion and the bass, and then kind of a synth later on. And but you could just kind of see how this thing is starting to get expanded on, which is really cool. But it keeps it so simple and so strong. You got this core kind of rhythmic motif throughout the track, and it just plays the whole thing. It just makes it very simple and catchy for the listener. So one thing here too is there's a little bit of a hat lift. So this is kind of, again, the thing that this is just kind of an observation. This will kind of go more into the structural insight that we'll look at in a second, but. And there we go. Now we're going to get bass 1. Okay, so I'm sorry, that was bass 1. Now we're getting bass 2. And so bass 2 is just a response. So we can call bass 1 is a call, and then we have bass 2, which is a response. And the percussion motif itself is starting that kind of call response CR pattern, right? So let's now map out bass 2. And so here we go. Now, again, bass 2 here is definitely following what the response is doing in the percussion, but they're slightly different, right? So if we kind of get all these guys together, maybe what I could do is I could take the percussion, just pop it up an octave. That way we can get a better visual of how these parts are kind of interlocking. But if I kind of pull all these together, right, and then maybe I'll also just take bass 2 and just pop it up a semitone. Again, so in that way when we look at this stuff, here we can kind of see the interaction, right? So here we have bass 1 and percussion 1. They're aligned rhythmically. And then here we have the second hit of the percussion motif just jumping up, playing a slightly different rhythm. But here's the bass also playing something slightly different. And so you can see this kind of call response structure. But these guys all are adding up together to be the kind of motif. And it continues throughout the whole thing, and it just makes it so simple and so catchy. But it's makes it really interesting at the same time, not overly repetitive, because you have these different parts that are contributing to this kind of overall melody, overall motif. And so one thing I want to do is I want to play towards the end, because I want to see if bass 2 here does anything different in the turnaround that's in both the percussion motif and bass 1. So it doesn't. Except for if you want to consider that little reverse bass right there part of bass 2. Let's see. That's cool. I mean, maybe I'll just do like bass rev for reverse, and I'll kind of map that out, because that again is happening at the turnaround point, right? So at the 4-bar mark. So this repeats 4 times, or 3 times, and then we get that little variation at the end. And so that sound, that bass reverse, is very, very much like this this sound. So maybe I will put that in the bass 2 just to kind of indicate a turnaround for the second bass, so that every single one of these things has a turnaround at the 4th repetition. So very cool. All right, cool. And so what we'll do is we'll just map out this little snare roll. Also, we should kind of keep track maybe of the edits. Edits are just where you do like a high pass. And just so we can, again, continue to keep track of the structure of what's going on. So here's a little bit of an edit. Edit is just where you remove the low end in some way. And usually what edits do is they prepare the listener for a change. And so... And that's what that snare roll does, just introduce some kind of rhythmic instability just to reset into the next 8 bars.
I need a freak.
All right, cool. And then we have the I need a freak again right here. And what happens next?
I need a freak.
All right, we get this cool little accent or impact. So we impact, just accenting the excitement. There we go, cool. Okay, let's bring these guys open. Now you can hear the difference that happens in bass 2 because it just opens up on the filter. So this is just open filter. Okay, a little bit of a delay on this as well. So we'll just put a delay on the Vox. And here we go, just color different. Okay, delay back over here too. Cool. But let me just back up so we don't get lost. Again, we're analyzing both these. We just did a little analysis of the core motif there, and we really saw most of the parts come together. We've got the percussion, we've got bass 1, we got bass 2, and then let's now look back at the structure. So the bass drop, what do we have? Did he introduce a bass line? He did. Did he have an A section, B section? He did, because this was bass 1 and bass 2. And then he kind of has like a little bit of a C section, you can say, but I wouldn't really consider this part of a C section, even though this guy opens up. This is just kind of like lifting up. From here to here, we're getting a brand new element, which is the second bass. From here to here, we're just opening up the filter on the second bass. So A section groove, we did get that, right? Because that's the bass and the percussion. B section, typically what we want is we want some kind of lift. We did get a lift, here with that second bass sound. I don't want to get too technical, but I would call that an elevation over a lift, because you're really adding something new there. But yeah, again, we're not going to get too deep into this. We just want to keep it real simple. All right, so up here. Okay, so we definitely get into a B section and is definitely lifting because we're adding the bass, we're opening the bass. This is what I wanted to say about the hat lift right here, because it's structural, right? And so in the bass drop, one thing you could do, and that's what the asterisk means. The asterisk means just kind of like an optional thing, but corresponding drum lift when the bass comes in. And so what we want to do is here, in the intro, you don't see a big hat. As soon as you get to the bass drop where the bass comes in, you get a corresponding drum lift, which is the open hat. Small hat, big hat. Small hat, big hat with bass. There you go. So we're getting a corresponding drum lift, and we're not going to get into punks and edits, although we are mapping the edits right there. So we'll just go like that. And B, transition. Transition just means getting out of the bass drop. When you're transitioning out of the bass drop, are you foreshadowing what's coming in the break? And that's not quite happening. Even though the vocals here are kind of indicating what the hook's going to be. A transition would be a sound that kind of like repeats or something, or kind of builds its way up to the main hook in the break. We'll see if that happens, but I don't think it does. Okay, so this alternates. Cool. So interesting. So that alternates open, closed, closed, closed. And same with this guy. So this one's open right here. If we get like a auto filter, let's go get an auto filter here. Where are you? This guy. And so what we're doing is basically we'll just map this out real quick. And I probably won't continue to map this, but basically you have now the filter open up on the first one, and then it goes back down. All right, is there tops lifts in there? Let's see. There's definitely just seems to be some additional tops lifts there. So I'm just going to do like a tops lift here and there. So you can see the kind of, again, the progression that's going on. Boom, we step into the bass drop. We've got the bass. We've got the hat lift. Here we step into the next 8 bars. We're getting that second bass. Here we step into the next 8 bars. We get the open filter on the second bass. And then we also get a little bit more of a tops lift. So just kind of progressively building. And that is, let's see what else is going on in the bass drop. And so there's no transition that leads us into the next section, but everything else, we got the bass line, A section, B section, groove. We've got the lift from the second bass coming in. We've got that open hat that kind of lifts the bass drop in general over the intro. And then we're getting some edits here just to kind of keep things interesting and moving into the next 8 bars. So now we're getting into the break. So let's kind of map that out. And so this is going to be break 1. Here we go. Cool. Okay, let's check it.
I need a freak.
Okay, so here we have the I Need a Freak again. There we go.
I need a freak.
So here we have the percussion motif continuing. The drums, we're losing the kick, so no kick. We still have the hat. It definitely had, there are different hats here. Lots of different hats. Lots of loop stacking here. Okay, now. I'm going to call that, you could, maybe this is the bass. I'm thinking this is a different sound. So this is going to be, I'm just going to call this synth. But the synth too, going back to the motif, whoops, that's the wrong color, is just playing basically the start of the motif, like the call of the motif. What's cool about this sound is the phasey sound, and you can get something kind of similar to that. I'm not going to do it exactly, but just showing you very similar. Let's go. Come on. Load serum. And basically what you want is you just want to stack oscillators and just have them kind of detuned. So for example, if we just play this, right, that's not going to give you that sound. And so if we just go 2, for example, and then we just collapse the width, okay, to 0, not -0. Okay, maybe bring down the detune. Okay, maybe stack a little bit more. Okay. And then we'll just pop this down a little bit, get out of there. But when you stack oscillators and it's all down mono, and you know you've got random on or you've got detune on, and even if we turn random off, you're still going to get some kind of phasey sound just because of the detune here. And you know, but if we bring this up to random, we're going to get a lot more detune kind of phasey sound because the oscillators are going to be constantly changing where they're playing in the cycle every time it gets a new MIDI note. So nothing's going to be re-triggered. You know, and then if you just increase the release on this, you kind of get that sound. But we'll go ahead and mute that, and here we go. Some nice distortion and saturation on there too. But okay, so this is no kick, no bass. We got freak. We got the synth coming in. What else? Let's go back to the structure here and look at break. What do we got to do with the breaks? Well, break 1 is where we take the groove away in some way and introduce the hooks. The idea is similar to the bass drop. The bass drop, we only introduce the bass or the full groove, and then we hold back on the hooks. In break one, we flip this. We hold back on the groove and we introduce the hooks. So in the bass drop, we're introducing the full groove. In the break, and we're introducing the groove separately in the bass drop. And then in the breaks, we're just introducing the hooks separately from the groove. So we're introducing those two main characters, the groove character and then the hooks character. And then in a hook drop one, those two are going to come together. So what do we have to do here in the break? Number one, give them a break. All right. And so is Joshwa doing that? Absolutely, because now we have no more low end, right? We're just, he's not just high passing, there's no bass and there is no kick. So he is no bass, no kick. That's how he's doing it. Just completely removing the low end elements. Is he keeping the groove alive? Absolutely, because the drums are still going. Is he introducing the main thing? Well, he's introducing one of the main things, which is the synth. The main thing is going to be the vocal. So let's see how this unfolds. Okay, so this grows with a release and verb. Cool. So okay, so now we're just into synth here. That would be insane in a club on the dance floor. This is one of the reasons why the track, I mean, the whole track is awesome, but these kinds of moments where you really just break it down and just get something crazy going, huge. All right, so here we have a snare roll. We're going to get a vocal rep. So these are all things that we're going to look at right now. But let's get this Vox rep in here. And what is the Vox rep? Rep is repetition. So we got freak, yo body rep.
They say the freaks come out at night.
Okay, and then we got the payoff.
They say the freaks come.
Boom, and then here we have the payoff. So pay off, and I'll just color that yellow because it's very bright. Okay, and so cool. Let's go back over to here, and so once we give them a break, we're keeping the groove alive. We're still going because we don't want to kill the dance floor right away. We're introducing the main thing. In this case, it's going to be the what's it called? The synth. And we're working a little bit of the vocal in there. Like we're introducing the vocal because the vocal is going to come in the drop for sure, but still getting that vocal in there. And then we want to do is build tension. That's what this section is right here, is it's really starting to build tension by completely taking out the drums. That builds tension. By having this synth just crazy and chaotic, that builds tension because people know that's not sustainable. You can't enjoy the track with this insane synth. So that's going to have to get tamed a little bit. And then here we're starting the like other tension elements. So for example, the snare roll coming in, and then we get the kind of like peak tension right here with the snare roll going down to 16ths and the vocal rep.
They say the freaks come out at night.
And then that brings us into the transition into the drop, which is going to be, in this case, a pipo transition. A pipo is pattern, interrupt, pay off. Here we have a building pattern, which is just tension, 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 tension. And then that tension gets abruptly stopped. And that's what pipo stands for, P-I-P-O, pattern, interrupt, pay off, pattern, interrupt, pay off. So the building pattern gets interrupted abruptly. Boom, stops right there. And then we get the payoff, the freaks come out at night, and then you explode into the drop. And so the transition is right there. We're building tension. Is there an Atmos in here? Yeah, because it's going to be from atmosphere, just gives like an atmospheric kind of vibe. What is the Atmos from? From the verb on synth. And then is there an entry to the break? There is not. But you can see all the high level stuff is just getting checked off. And just like every other track that we walk through, all the big things are being done, but they're just being done in a unique and creative way.
They say the freaks come out at night.
Boom. And now we move into the stability of the drop. But now this is where everything starts to get paid off because we have the hook drop. So hook, drop one, where hooks and groove come together. All right. For the first time. Okay. Introduce the grooves over here, introduce the groove over here, introduce the hook right here. And now we're getting them back together. So, or I shouldn't say back together. We're getting them together for the first time. Now, there's a big elevation here because this guy is fully open. So if we go over to the filter, we might as well just have this open for now, just like that. You know, so there we go. Okay, so open, filter, across the board. There we go. And then we'll just duplicate that over. And so here we had the freaks come out at night. We've got a delay on night, so we'll just kind of put this there. But going back to the core motif, this is the hook of the groove section right now, right? This is just the hook. And so the interaction of the percussion, this bass, and then the more open kind of square wave FM-y kind of bass is what the hook is right now. It's the thing that people are latched onto. Cool. And then we're going back to the freak line right here. So there we go. And what's next? This is an even bigger 909 hat and longer. So you can hear the difference. So here we have a 909. Nice and kind of tight. Here is just longer. Okay, getting a little bit more vocal in there. Did he do that here? No, so right here. So right here, know what I'm saying? Cool. So there's a little tiny bit, you can feel some tension effects up right here going into the next, to the B section, which is going to be a little bit of tension. So there could just be something that's starting to transition, whether it's white noise or some kind of low-level riser. You can feel something pulling you into the next section. There we go. And then we got another snare roll right here. And then we got the freak line right there. And then we have the impact that happened before. So right here. So let's check it out. I need a freak to hold me tight. There we go. And now we're in the B section. Okay, so here we go. We'll do HG1B, which is going to be defined by the vocal. HG1A, hook drop 1, so HG1A is defined by the groove and the plus motif. There you go. And then so let's color these black and white just to really highlight the contrast from going from an A to a B. And let's send this over because it'll probably be similar. And then let's get the vocal here. To hold me tight. I need a freak every day and every night. I need a freak. I really do. I want a freak. Want an ass that looks like you. I need a freak. Exclusively, so that she only comes to satisfy me. I need a freak to hold me tight. I need a freak every day and every to hold me tight. I need a freak every day and every night. I need a freak. Well, cool. And so I just want to map out the phrasing of this. So the phrasing of that vocal's 4 bars, but then we have 3 different parts of it. We have this part of it, like with these lyrics. Every day, every night. We have another set of lyrics. I want a freak, want an ass that looks like you. All right. Freak exclusively. Freak exclusively, and then going back to the main line right there. So A or A B C A. In terms of that. And so, okay, cool. So there we go. To hold me tight. I need a freak every day and every night. I need a freak. I really do. Okay, cool. I was just checking something there, but that is really cool. Okay, so let's come back over here. Let's go down to hook drop 1. So what do we got? Hooks over groove? Absolutely. HG1 equation, we don't need to go too deep into that, but the basic idea is that if the groove here plus hooks in the break equals hook drop 1. And that's about to come true, especially right here, because we're going to get that synth on top. But we have, what are the hooks, right? We've got the synth, we've got the vocals, and then the groove is obviously the groove. But those are the three main characters, the vocals, the synth, and the groove. And they're all coming together in hook drop 1. And so that's what it's all about. And that's what hooks over groove is. And I'm just going to, again, like I usually do, highlight this because it is just the most important thing ever. The highest level thing you could possibly do in a track is just get that right. Everything else is just downstream from this. Like arrangement, if you got hooks and groove, tell a simple story, there you go. A section, B section, that's exactly what we're getting into. And even the kind of like models of A section, B section right here are being, respected, I guess you could say. You have the groove, and then we're going into the hook with the vocal. It's exactly right. And then, okay, this is a little bit detailed, but I will say that right here, CLT stories are like when you're in an A section, this would be like chill, where this is like the normal, defined as normal. And then in the next second 8 bars, what happens, right? Well, the underlying hook structure stays the same. The motif stays the same, but something happens. We got a bigger 909 lift. And so here would be chill, here would be lift. And that's an example of a CLT story. So we do have an A section CLT. AB edit, we do have that right here with the snare roll. So that's just an edit between the A section and the B section. Huge deal because, again, edits prepare the listener for change, or they signal moments of change. And going from A section to B section is a huge change because we're introducing a primary hook right there. So that's huge. Full development, sure, because we're getting the full groove now with all the, what are they called? The drums. And then here, entry strip, we don't have anything like that. No tactics. This is a very tactical thing to do, but in this track, there's no tactics. It's just straightforward presentation of big hooks and grooves. So.
To hold me tight, freak. I really do. I want a freak, one with ass that looks like you. I need a freak. Exclusive.
Okay, so now we're getting into a high pass section. So this is, you could consider this a break, but I'm not going to consider this a break. I'm going to consider this whole thing a drop, and this is just a very dramatic edit between what we can consider this to be the HG1. You can consider this a return to A section, right? Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just consider this A asterisk because we're going to return back to the groove without the vocal. But this is just going to be a very dramatic edit moving back to this section, but I wouldn't call that a break. All right, so here we have, I'm just going to make that whole thing an edit.
Exclusively.
And then we're going back to the synth right here. So
exclusively. So that she only come to satisfy me. I need a freak to hold me tight.
All right, and then here we have a snare roll right here.
Freak to hold me tight. I need a freak every day, every night. I need a freak.
That's so cool. That's so good.
Every day, every night.
So the snare goes right here, and then this cuts. Well, the vocal cuts right there anyway, but let's get the freak line over here with a delay probably.
I need a freak.
Man, an even bigger lift right here on the drums. So even bigger. So I'm going to color these different. So let's color this like that color, and then we'll color this just another color like that. It's just to highlight the difference. Cool. And then we got the Know What I'm Saying line right here. Go there, right there. Okay, or we just move it in a different spot. That's cool. Then we have a kind of glitch on the every day and every night. So we'll just color these different colors like that. Okay. All right. Here, the filter starts to alternate. So okay, there you go. And so that filter starts to alternate too. And it steps down, which is a lowering of the energy. As small of a move that is by just simply taking away the, the kind of mids on the second bass there. You're just, you're starting to remove energy. You're stepping down into the break section. Cool. And just mapping out some more of the vocals. Is there anything right here? Yeah, there is something right there. So there we go. Well, maybe we'll go over there. So this section right here is just kind of a return to the groove, but just with some kind of residual like vocal chops. We just had a vocal, so just having some vocals here. You got like some kind of cool effects on there. It sounds like a tremolo maybe, or like a really fast delay also is on there, just giving a little bit of atmosphere. But okay, so if we come back over here, and I'll just color this a different color. Let's just color it a dark gray like that. And cool. So HG1. Do we have punks? And we do definitely have the edits. And so there we go. So now when we're getting into the main break and build, which is going to be this guy, just to kind of build up to the second drop, we'll talk about what we need to do here. But I just want to also kind of show, like, the motif is just still playing. And so the motif is mostly a groove element, right? Because you've got, not in general, but in this track, the motif is in the groove. It's the percussion and it's the two bass sounds playing together. And then when we get here, we have the vocal that's able to play alongside with it, which is going to be getting to what we're going to talk about towards the end, which is going to be working backwards and kind of avoiding a trap that I could see a lot of producers falling into potentially. And then, so here we introduce the groove. Here we step up in energy because we're introducing the vocal. And then this is like the climax. And now we're starting to work down into the main break and build by taking the way of the vocal, but just kind of letting the momentum of the vocal happen with some kind of, pieces of the vocal. And then now we finally get into the main break and build. So let's see how that transition happens. Okay, so that is one of the best examples of what I call a cliff dive, because a cliff dive is where you completely remove the groove and you step into either atmosphere or you step into hook. And that's what Joshua's doing right here, is just stepping into hook. So here we go. Every day and every night. Yeah, so you can hear a couple things on there. Sounds like a tremolo, sounds like a fast delay. Really cool. Cool. Every day and every night. I need a break. Won't ask if it's like. All right, and then again, going back to the core motif, you can see how like this just starts the call of the motif, but now we're going to get the response. So if we go back to the bass drop, check this out. It's just the call. It's just the call of the motif for the most part in the bass. And then when we step into the next 8 bars, we get the response from the bass. And the similar structure is going on over here, even though the context is completely different. Like here, we're getting the call from the synth. But then here, when we step into the next 8 bars, we're getting now the response, which is just the second bass. So that is cool. Let's put this over here, and this is just going to be filtered. It could be a completely different sound because this does not sound FM-y. This sounds kind of like more of a pluck, but I'll just kind of notate that, like different bass sound, but still it's going to be the response. So I'm going to keep it on the same track because of where it's playing. So we got the synth playing the call, And then we have the bass coming in over here. Let's see. So here we're getting tops. We're starting to step up. So this is tops. Okay. Again, I mean, if we just zoom all the way out, like what's going on in this track? Again, you've got the motif and you've got the hooks. Like those are the two kind of like you've got the motif and you've got the vocal. And I guess you could say the synth, but the synth for me is playing part of the motif. So really you've got the motif and all the sounds that are playing the motif, and then you've got the vocal. And the only other kind of main character is the drums. And so that's what it's all about. Like here is just the motif playing. Here's the motif playing more completely with different sounds. And then now we bring the drums in with the vocal. Like very simple what's going on if, when you zoom out enough. So this is just like freaking wide open release in space. So now we're starting to move towards the build because we're getting the rep of the vocal, which is I need a freak. So let's do need a freak, and we'll just kind of duplicate this out. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So the tops right here are low passing down. Okay, we got snare roll right here. We're going to get a vocal rep. We might need a second channel here. So we'll do Vox rep. So I'm going to go I'm going to put this on here.
Freaks come out at night.
Okay, cool. So this is going to be the Vox rep that happens in the breaks. So we'll do freak your body rep right here, which is what happened before. Freak your body rep. And then this picks up too. So we're going to get freak, freak. I don't know if that's going to pick up. Let's see. But it's going freak, freak. So that's playing quarter notes. So 1, 2. I guess we could just kind of loop this for now. And then we're getting another rep. Freaks come out. So this is freak your body. So Vox rep 2. And then what's this one? So this is freaks come out. So this is just now out rep. Okay, what else is going on? Now, I think the low end of that synth finally came in. Yeah, so the low end of the synth is coming in. Low end comes in. You can hear the depth on that, right? So if we listen here, right? If we look at this, oh, come on, over here.
Every day and every night.
Okay, but over here, you can hear, well, maybe it's just the fact that the release is up. But you can definitely hear some weight to that. So the low end looks pretty similar. So I guess it's more of just the low end, the sustaining of the low end that's giving me that feeling of weight. All right, so I'm going to take that away because it does look like early on the low end's there. It's just not sustaining, so it doesn't have the same feel. Okay, release down. So here, the release is completely sustaining the sound. Here, the release starts to come down, so we get more rhythmic again as we move towards the drop. And then here we get the 16th, so I'm going to separate this into broken snare roll, which just basically means that the snare roll is not playing a 16th note pattern. And then here we get into the 16th note pattern. There we go. Cool. And then we get this kind of weird up effect, which is probably going to take us into the vocal at the payoff. So I'm going to get this guy over here, which will probably be the same payoff as before. So there we go.
They say the freaks come out at night.
Man, this is such a good track. Okay. And then, so there we go. So we got the main break and build. And so here it would be main break, and this would be the break right here. And then this would be the build. Cool.
I need a break.
Because that's really where the rep starts. But if we come back over here, again, looking at the structure, this is HT2. You can see we're just checking off the boxes. And I've said this before, but if someone, if I look at that, then that would, well, okay, we're going to move on. So the next thing would be, the main break and build, right? What do we do in the main break and build? We take away what the thing that they want. They want the hooks over groove, and we take it away in some way. The hooks over groove is the drug that they're addicted to. We take it, they got addicted to it, by the way, back over here, right? We gave it to them for the first time. They got their first hit, you can say. And then that goes away. The hooks over groove goes away, and they're like, man, I want it back. That's what this is going to be. That's what this is all setting up. All of this is setting up the return of the hooks over the groove. So we take it away and build tension. And we prolong the return. Let's just go like this. And we prolong the return of what they want, which again is hooks and groove. So the most important structure of the main break and build is the V taper. We've got some down energy and then some up energy. And yep, there you go. So transition into main break and build. How do we do that? He's going into the cliff dive. So we'll just kind of do that. You can see he's just checking off the boxes. V taper, we've got down then up. Of course, this is just massively up. This whole thing is basically up. So we only have one down move, which is from the drop and the cliff dive into the synth. And then it's kind of progressively going up, which is interesting because I've seen this come up more and more. So in Clooney's How Deep Is Your Are Your Dreams does a similar move. Appetite from Chris Lorenzo does a similar move where you drop into the lowest energy state and then you just kind of move up from there. But a lot of times you'll see more of a symmetrical kind of energy structure, which would be like you step down, and then right here about halfway through, then you step up and then you step up. And so you get this clean, symmetrical down energy, up energy. But in this case, it's immediate step down and then just up from there. And so again, kind of interesting and similar. It's been showing up a little bit more, at least in the tracks I've been analyzing. I don't think there's any real connection there, but it's just a form that's doing well for whatever reason. And the down up structure here is not the reason why this track is killing it. It's because of like this huge synth and the cool hooks over the groove, not because it has some kind of progressive build. Okay, but anyway, going ahead.
They say the freaks come out at night.
All right, but lowest to highest, absolutely. This is the lowest energy state. This is the highest energy state. And then right here. All right, so absolutely going lowest to highest of the whole track. That's the whole point in the whole track of the main break and build is going lowest to highest. We have down energy. We don't have steps. We just have cliff dive into main break and build. Turning point. We don't have a turning point really except right from the beginning at the start. All right, a turning point is when you turn from down to up. But here is immediately down and then just up from there. Basement is same thing as, we could skip that. Pipo, we have the same one as before. Up energy, build, repro, rise, grow. We have the hook, we have the repetition, we have the roll, we probably have risers, and there's definitely some growing of the space through reverb. Elevation over B1, absolutely. Break one is because it's more dramatic and it's a longer build. Like this whole thing is just more dramatic right here. Watch. compared to this. All right, and so this is just a massive elevation over what came before in terms of building, and there's no payoff extensions, meaning that the drop lands on time right here. It doesn't do any fancy thing where it extends the drop unnecessarily. It lands on time. You get the Amazon package on time, and you're happy. So here we go.
They say the freaks come out at night.
So here we're going to bring over the bigger tops because we're just going right in. We're front loading the massive energy from the tops over here. And so we're getting right away an elevation in hook drop 2. And hook drop 2, by the way, is the main thing of the track. It's what all this was working up to, is when this final payoff moment right here. And that's why I call it the HG2 formula, because it's all about the HG2. It's all about HG2. And so let's get a hook drop 2 over here. So I'm going to get this A section right there, but we'll just change this to 2. And the thing about, let's go over to hook drop 2. So deliver on time, no payoff extensions. You can see I have that twice. Hooks over groove, absolutely. Right here, HG1 equals HG2. This is going to be true in this case. For the, man, there should be like a little bit of like a equals approximately. So, yeah, this is kind of more what it should be. Shouldn't be a hard equal sign. It should be the kind of approximately equal. There you go. Okay, and so HG1 is roughly equal to HG2, especially in terms of hook structure. And that's going to be true here because we're going to have groove and then we're going to have vocal. So I'm going to move this over here. And so that's going to be true. And this is where producers can go wrong a lot because they think they have to be clever and do some kind of crazy reinvention of the entire track. But what you have to understand is like the whole story, the most basic story of a track, and this goes back to simple structure, right, is that you give them hooks and groove in a way that they like. You teach them like, hey, this is the groove and the hooks, and this is the kind of structure that we're going to listen to them in, and they love that. That's what they want. They want to hear it again. It's like a chorus in a pop song. You know, they learn it, they love it, they want to sing it again. Here, they heard it, they love it, they want it again. But when you get into the main break and build, you separate those two. You separate the hooks and the groove, and they're not playing together anymore. And that's fundamentally what the listener wants. And so then when you build tension, you're promising the listener, hey, I'm going to give you back the thing that you want, which is hooks over groove, but not just hooks over groove in the presentation that you've learned it. And so if you switch things up over here, number one, you're breaking your promise that you're making over here. And two, you're just doing a basic bait and switch. No one likes a bait and switch. You know, if you're like, think about getting your favorite candy and then, oh man, I finished it. And then someone's like, hey, I'm going to give you your favorite candy again. And then they give you a different one. And you're like, what the fuck? You know, even if this one's good, it's just not the same. You wanted what you wanted, you know? And so here we're going to see perfect hook HG1 equals HG2. And so with a minor step down, right here, he's stepping down into the main break and build. So we're not going to get that. We're just going to go right to outro. But this thing right here where we go grooves, motif, and then going into vocal, that's going to be the same structure over here. So let's see how that plays out. Man, so he just keeps on climbing with the drums. So we're just going to get another freaking color here. Even more bigger. There we go. So that, by the way, just as a callback, is an A section CLT because this is chill, this is lift. And there we go. Let's see.
You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, and then we're getting a ride. I love it. Okay, ride. Yes, I love rides. They just sound so good. 909 rides. Just one of the best sounds. It's when you're at peak energy and you're just like, hell yes, here we go.
To hold me tight. I need a freak.
Okay, but right there, right? A section, groove plus motif, B section, vocal. Let's just change this to HD2.
Freak to hold me tight. Want an ass that looks like you. I need a freak exclusively, so that she only comes and satisfies me. I need a freak to hold me tight. I need a freak every day and every night. I need a freak.
All right.
Freak to hold me tight. I need a freak.
Okay, so here, are we alternating? I think so. Okay, we got to alternate over here. So I'm going to bring this guy over here. And I need to change the automation on this. So this is just going to be closed, I guess, technically, because this is, you know, just a bass with a little bit of a plucky thing. So.
Freak exclusively, so that I want a freak. Want a freak to hold me tight. I need a freak. Freak.
So I'll just duplicate this because we're filtering the envelope there.
Every day and every night. I need a freak.
And this is just closed again because now we're in the outro. And then cool. Cool. Outro. Bam. There we go.
Freak. You know what I'm saying? I need a freak.
And then back just to the motif. Let's get rid of the bass and just the beat and the motif.
Freak.
Okay, and then we're stepping down to, you know, simpler tops here. So. Awesome. So there we go. Man, what a track. It's just so simple. Okay, sweet. Okay, and then let's just check these off over here in Hook Drop 2. A/B edit, yes. The most important stuff, elevation over HD1. We got the ride. We also have the bigger tops right there. Front loading energy, nope, because everything stayed structurally the same. Front loading is if we was going to take the vocal and move it earlier. Front loading just move the excitement earlier, so he's not doing that. And none of the tactical stuff. It is doing edits. Outro, just groove, breaking down the beats. So this is a boring outro in a good way. A/B, yes. No happy ending. So awesome. If we come back over here, fundamentally track is going to boil down to any hit track is going to boil down to big hook and big groove. Okay, core motif, that's something we looked at. Simple structure. Now, what I wanted to mention, we looked at that a lot. Like the entire track is kind of built around this plus the vocal, and then the simple structure is just the HD2 formula. We've got the intro, we've got break one, we got the intro, we got bass drop introducing the bass, we got break one introducing the main hook or a main hook, and then we have hook drop one, which is just A section, B section vocal, and then we have another section that kind of moves us down into the main break and build, and that is then the next section, the main break and build. So here we are, and then we have HD2, here we are, and then we have the outro, and there we are. And so I was just pointing at this in case you couldn't see it. Cool. And so simple structure, right? Big hook, big groove. Simple story, there you go. Working backwards, what do I mean by this? When you're doing a core motif like this, I can imagine producers wanting to start to work on the motif like over here. But you have to realize that right here, this whole thing, HG2B and HG1B, when the vocal's playing with the motif, you have to have the vocal and the motif working together. And so the last thing you should do, or if you want to make your life really hard, then you would write the motif and then try to find a vocal. But what you want to do is you want to work backwards. Just because the track is unfolding over time like this doesn't mean that was the order of operations for the producer. He didn't write the intro probably first. What he did is he had a vocal, and then he wrote a groove and a motif that worked to the vocal, not the other way around. So it's not about like writing a motif and then trying to find like a vocal hook. Now, and so for most producers, if you are not writing your own hooks, if you're using Splice, I highly recommend finding a vocal first and then writing a motif to that vocal that works. And then that will work on its own just throughout the beginning of the whole track, And so that's why I mean work backwards, is because I can imagine, again, producers writing the motif first and then trying to find a vocal. And I'm recommending do the exact opposite. Find a vocal first. That's going to be the core hook of the track anyway. And then write the motif and the groove to that vocal hook. Okay. Now, where does this change? This could change if you are writing your own hooks. In that case, if you come up with a motif, like if you're building a groove first, then you can write your hook to the motif. You can write your vocal to the motif because you have the freedom to do that. But if you're a producer who's shy about writing their own hooks or something, and you're looking for vocals on Splice or through remixing on an existing track, again, I highly recommend first starting with the vocal and then building the groove and the motif around that vocal. It's a lot easier to build a groove and motif around a hook than it is to force a hook into an existing groove or motif. So start with the vocal, then write the groove motif. If you're writing your own hooks, then it doesn't really matter. You're fine either way. If you're writing your own hooks, you could just write the hook and then build the groove and motif around it. Or if you have a groove and motif, then you can very easily write a hook that fits there. And so if you're writing your own, then you're good either way. It's just for the producers who are not writing their own hooks, where they can kind of fall into that trap of trying to force a hook into an existing groove. That's very difficult to do. And so that's it. This track is just amazing. The big takeaway, again, is just these two for me right there. It's just that really cool core motif and how it gets kind of elaborated or expanded over time, and just using a simple structure to tell the story. And thanks for watching. If you got your own insights or questions, leave them down in the comments. I will see you in the next breakdown. Peace.